2017, the launch of Proverb, Lifefuelled Skincare for Men. In this episode, Luke and I will explain to you how the concept of Proverb, a new range of men's skincare, has come into being, where the ideas came from, what the concepts are, who the products are for, and in fact why we have ended up in male skincare as well as spa women's skincare. Okay, so we are currently sitting and we are technically 4 weeks away from the official launch, which is October the 16th. October the 16th.
I hope it's October the 16th. There's going to be people coming to an event that doesn't happen.
October the 16th, 2017. We are on the 4-week countdown. What we wanted to do is, although a lot of this story is still completely under wraps and is being saved for press and for the launch, those of you who follow us already, we wanted to tell you from us directly the story before. So basically, a sneaky peek. You get to find out before anyone else why this is all in fact happening.
And maybe a few things you didn't know about Kirstie and I as well.
So, those of you that do know me, and for those of you that don't and haven't yet listened to any of our podcasts, I met Luke when I was studying for my history degree. So technically began my adult life as a historian. And I think because of that, it's pretty crucial to give you a little bit of the background history, because without that, you cannot understand how we end up being where we are with 4 weeks to go today. So I was studying history at Oxford, which is where I met Luke. And despite the fact that he was there because he was quite clever, there was a very special reason that you pinpointed that university.
Yeah, I have to be honest. And in truth...
And it wasn't the library.
No, in truth, I applied to Cambridge first, which might give you a clue. But no, having looked around and been given the opportunity to...
They rejected him, by the way.
That's true, they did. I was a year younger and a year more naive, but... No, absolutely. There was a real plan involved. I was very lucky to have the opportunity to apply for Oxford after my gap year, in which time I'd been playing rugby for Saracen's Academy. And having done a lot of research and asked a lot of people, it was clear that at that time, and obviously going back a bit now, to 1997 this would have been, the game of professional rugby was only just starting. There wasn't really academies as they are now to sort of go into as opposed to education, so there was no way I wasn't going to go to university. Absolutely. It
wasn't even, I mean, that's hard, it's hard for people to understand now, but rugby had only just gone professional, and yeah, so the setup just didn't exist like it does now.
We were the forerunners of what's come after, and it was a fantastic time. It was really exciting. There were lots of opportunities, but as I said, there wasn't really the opportunity to give up an education and play rugby full time. And I still look back and think that's been one of the luckiest things that happened to me, because I don't know how today I would advise my children, and I know people with children of that age, 17, 18, that are in academies, professional sports setups, and they are having to choose between degrees and playing professional sport, and I luckily didn't have to make that choice. It wasn't really an option.
However, you did choose Oxford because of how good it was at rugby.
Well, absolutely, and that's where, again, I was fortunate because I got some good advice, and at the point I was looking at universities, obviously further education was important to me. I went on to study human sciences and the study of our interaction with the environment and human evolution, and a whole lot of things that I still find fascinating and hopefully make after dinner conversation for my friends. But the truth of it was that they were a professionally run club, and I use the word professionally. You know, we weren't paid, but they had a hierarchy. They had, it was run by employed coaches, staffs. Their ethos was very much in line with professional clubs at the time, and so there wasn't a fear of falling into the sort of student union-based lifestyle where it makes...
You didn't have to stick tissue up your bum and light it.
You could. I mean, that was always an option, but only
light
for fun.
It for some sort of initiation.
Exactly.
It was serious.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why, obviously, those of you who know, it culminates in the varsity match at Twickenham, which is why obviously going to Cambridge and getting rejected meant I was even more motivated to beat them. It was just a very lucky set of coincidences that allowed me to continue my education at a level which was inspiring and interesting, but also, as Kirstie said, quite honestly, keep an eye on the future of my rugby career.
So Luke did his undergraduate degree, and it was quite rare as an undergrad to get in the first 15, but he did. And as a consequence, as one of his friends all the way through university, we weren't together at university. I pretty much didn't really see you very much. He missed every party, as far as I can remember. He missed every ball. He went home early. He was beyond dedicated.
Secretly, I was working. No,
No, you weren't.
No, I wasn't. Else I would have got a better degree. No, that's right. I mean, early on, it was a passion of mine, and that sort of level of focus and mental strength was something that I enjoyed testing. Obviously, looking back, maybe I could have done more. Maybe there were a few parties, but the beauty again of the Oxford setup is it's one game in December, so you get 4 months to build up to it, hopefully successfully, and you do get to enjoy a little bit of.
Yeah, so basically you got 2
Unlike
jobs.
the rowers, who we'll discuss later.
We'll come back to one of those in a bit more detail.
Wow, they are crazy.
And so Luke had an unbelievable time in that he played 3 varsities against Cambridge and won all 3 of them.
Yeah.
The first of which I remember very clearly because I was dressed up as a Mexican wearing a poncho with all of our friends, and not only did we win, you scored the winning try, which ended you up with a corner at Twickenham being named after you, Sheriff's Corner.
Well, yeah, that lasted a while, which was
based
fun.
on how crazy your supporting friends were.
We had a particularly fun college, and they dressed as Mexicans by tradition anyway. But I think for Sky pundits to have Mexicans and a sheriff was
had been drinking tequila on a bus since 8:30 in the morning.
I hadn't been drinking tequila, although I think that night maybe. But it was a fantastic experience, and it set me up in all sorts of ways really. And I can't talk highly enough of Oxford and the people I spent my time with there.
When we finished our 3-year Bachelor of Arts degrees that we both did, Oxford were desperate for you to stay for another year. And sometimes there's always chat that they then give people really easy courses to do to get them stay for a master's, like knitting degrees and that sort of thing.
Nice.
Luke didn't do knitting. He clearly did another really difficult subject.
Well, I was lucky enough, as I said, to play as an undergraduate and be offered a master's in biological anthropology, which sounds a bit grander than it is, but it really was an extension of my degree in human evolution and the way our biology is affected by the environment we live in. So it was a no-brainer for me, really, and so I was thrilled to carry on for another year. And what it also allowed me to do is sign up with Harlequins. So while that year was going on, it was a perfect time, as rugby was developing, to sign a contract, but also be in education and get a sort of best of both worlds.
And so we kind of ignored it at the time. It seemed normal, but Luke did a master's degree, which he managed to get a distinction in, and played professional Premiership rugby at the same time.
And got published.
Oh.
What?
Yeah, I'm sure I helped type that dissertation.
You did. That was the beginning of our creative partnership.
And basically left, and it was a no-brainer. As everyone left Oxford, there was, as far as I could tell, pretty much 3 routes out. You were going to be a management consultant, a banker, or a lawyer. That was it. They were the exit routes. And I had got my knickers in a twist because I very categorically didn't want to do any of those.
You left it a bit late to professional sports, wasn't
Yeah, and Luke had the easy answer. He also knew he didn't want to do any of those, but so he was offered the chance to keep chasing the egg-shaped ball for a living and be paid for it.
Genius. A moment of genius through no planning of my own, but it was avoiding interviews and internships and all the things that come with it was a godsend because they don't really suit my personality. To this day, I've only ever had one job interview.
And that was for fun. And so out of a very close group of 12 friends, we are the only 2 that didn't stick to those 3 routes. I went off traveling for a bit and then ended up in the world of beauty, which wasn't the most normal route out of Oxford to retrain to be a beauty therapist. And Luke signed contract after contract at Harlequins. Now, it's an interesting side of you because you're actually relatively shy about this part of your career. And there are people that genuinely we've known for a really long time, and they possibly don't all know to the places and the levels you did play. So I will give you a pricey for it, because even now, this many years later, I can see he slightly winces and gets slightly uncomfortable by it, like he's showing off.
Might have to practice for press day.
Yeah. So you played for Harlequins, who, those of you who don't maybe follow rugby, they are a Premiership side, essentially equivalent to Man U, Chelsea, that kind of grouping in a rugby world. And how many years did you play there?
7.
7 years.
Sound like Len. 7.
And during all of this, you also played sevens, which is the cut down number version, the quicker rugby version for England. I played in the Rugby World Games and ended up actually helping get rugby into the World Cup. Played for the Barbarians, captain Harlequins in the Heineken Cup, and he's very shy about it all.
Well, you know, it was good times.
And all during this, I was starting my Beauty World career and used to beg him every time contract season came round to go and play for Leicester Tigers, because I had a business in the Midlands. And it never quite happened. But
If only Wasp had lived in Coventry back then.
Yes. It never quite happened. And at the point, my business was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I essentially convinced you to join me, and you actually ended up playing for a good few years at Nottingham as well, which was also an amazing time because you were the Sheriff of Nottingham.
We were laughing about it in an upcoming podcast with David Jackson from School of Calisthenics. A great guy you'll hear lots more about over the time and the life of Proverb. But that Nottingham era was particularly enjoyable. You know, it came with a little bit less pressure because, you know, we weren't pitted as maybe as big a team, but we had a great bunch of guys and really, really sort of exceeded other people's, not our own expectations. I think we had very high expectations, but I think we exceeded other people's expectations, which is always fun when you're beating people that
and actually
don't expect it.
A good amount of your team now still play in the Premiership, don't they?
Yeah, it was a fantastic launch pad really for some great names, and it's good to keep in touch with them, and they'll be the first to get our men's skincare when it's launched. So Kirstie has done a very kind thing, because I'm not the first to go into my brief history of rugby, but it was a fantastic time, and during that, as Kirstie said, she was busy building a business empire, which, you know, on the flip side of having seen her start it all on her own and reach the dizzy heights, has been inspiring. So she obviously started with training schools in 2004, ended up training 2,000 people a year in fast track beauty education, which was cutting edge at the time, and Pink's Academy, as it was known, was one of the forerunners in that business. And then saw an opportunity, again before its time, to get into organic skincare. And there is a link here, because at that time, you know, the nutritional advice that we were getting at Quinn's and the way that we were eating was going that way. We were talking about organic, we were talking about the way you prepare food, eating clean. And so Kirstie was...
And this was a long time ago. This was 2006, 2007. Yeah. Whole Foods were only just about deciding to come into High Street Kensington. Yeah. It was niche at that point.
It was niche, but Kirstie saw an opportunity and was also interested, because she was training all these people on products that she wasn't really convinced by. And so we went back to the drawing board and said, what sort of products and ingredients would we like? And that was the beginning of Pink's Boutique, as you know, the complete range of organic certified skincare for spas. But not having just said that, it's more than just that. Kirstie was named the most influential person in the Natural Beauty Yearbook in 2015. She's always been in the top 3. I think her personality, her ability to express herself, motivate people, get the message across, has led to us having great opportunities to work with Amman Global Resorts, Cowley Manor, John Lewis, the Scarlett, some great people, all really down to her passion. And so that has been the driving light in the business
And
world.
I dragged the boy in.
Yeah.
So we essentially
dragged is a bit harsh.
We essentially merged the rugby world, and the way that had made us start to think about ingredients, and my business and everything that we have run since 2009 to date was based along that.
Yeah. And so the question was what to do next. I don't think we're the sort of people that like to sort of rest on our laurels or take it easy. That's certainly not true. And so we were looking at other avenues. And at the time, you were pregnant.
Yes.
With Charlie, who is now 2.5. So that gives you some idea of how long these projects take to go off the ground. And one of Kirstie's big bugbears, if you've ever been trained by her or heard her talk, is brands that pass themselves off as natural. We'll call it greenwashing. And there's a particularly prominent one in the pregnancy stretch mark industry, the number one selling stretch mark oil, who, mainly due to their name, sounds particularly organic and biological.
The fact that bio is used.
And so Kirstie was on one at this point. She's like, I'm not using that stuff. Clearly, I can't believe people...
It's a full petroleum-based oil, which people believe is a natural oil. But not only that, are spreading it over their pregnant bumps. And I was really unhappy about it. Still am, to be honest. But at that point, I was very unhappy about it. Probably hormonal too.
And so she was on a mission. So we looked at our business and we're like, what can we do next to spread the word of natural, organic, clean ingredients, give people those opportunities. There's a growing market of people interested in it. And so we set out to make a natural bio. I mean, a certified, not just a natural, certified organic and natural version of bio.
And we got quite far with it.
Yeah, we were in Bali at the time, having one of our mini relocations. My sister was there, who's a marketing expert. And we were talking, a lot about it. We even came up with a name. I'd
essentially formulated it.
Yeah.
We ended up in a brand agency.
Yeah.
We had a name, which I still love.
We'll keep that under wraps.
In case it comes out at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to be honest, the one thing we were struggling with, and this will give you another good indication of how poor bio oil is even when I was doing formulations with like the cheapest versions of organic and natural seed oils and the things we find acceptable, we were double the price of bio oil. And so it does make you realise how cheap the internal ingredients are because, yeah.
Yeah, so we were obviously with the branding agency looking at designs, talking about the concept, and they kept using this fantastic word provenance.
Which neither of us had ever heard of.
Despite being a published author, English it's not my strong point. So we came straight out of the meeting and rang my best friend Will, who's a wordsmith, he's a lawyer. And we were asking about
lawyers.
it. And even he didn't want to commit, but that's more a lawyer thing. And it turns out provenance actually relates to a piece of art, and it's the history behind a piece of art. But people use it with brands, particularly because obviously you're talking about the history. It's basically for you and I the story of the brand. So we had a story. We've just told it to you. But in the corner was a lovely woman called Susan Pugsley, who was a researcher, a fantastic lady with huge experience. And we had come out of the meeting a bit flat because I don't think we felt that the branding agency had necessarily nailed it, and obviously there were some issues over the price point and how we would access the market. So we were a bit flat.
Yeah, it wasn't the most exciting day.
And also we were confused by provenance. So we were thrilled about 2 days later when we got an email from Susan, which was really positive, really upbeat about us, which was really kind of her. But she was very honest as well, and she said,
I don't think you two have nailed this.
Right, she basically echoed our feelings, which were, you two have got a great story, you've got a great mission. I don't think a natural version of a stretch mark oil is it.
Is right now for you.
And she mentioned men's skincare. And this was in nearly 3 years ago.
She essentially said, I've listened to your story, I hear your story, I love the story and I love the background that you both have.
Yeah.
It makes total sense to me that the most obvious market that next needs help is men.
And we had discussed it. I mean, she can take the credit for steering us more forcefully towards it, but we had discussed it a lot. We know a lot of men, young men, some famous, skincare was becoming more talked about. And this is 3 years ago, and although it's taken a long time to launch, it feels even more so now that it's the right time to start talking about it. But she was talking about our provenance again, our story, our history, and she just said the two of you together. The reason that Pink's Boutique came about was because of rugby. Luke's position as someone that's lived that way, that is now engaged in skincare, makes a really interesting story. And that was it. We were sold on the idea.
And I just genuinely, at that point, the movement of clean eating, well-being, Instagram,
men's health in general,
was really just starting to take off, and it shows you how quickly this can actually happen. And we were looking at it and saying, okay, so there are all these boys going into gyms and drinking protein shakes, many of them drinking them incorrectly at the wrong time, pretty much doing too many biceps and chest weights and not doing any back weights. They are utterly starting to get this drive to their body. And then you were looking at all of our friends who were late 20s, 30s, the huge boom in cycling and triathlon, and how many people are pedaling themselves up the tap. There was clearly something starting, but, and this is the big but, I am not sure, despite the fact that there was this movement in clean eating, and I still believe this, that the male market has not realised that what goes into skincare and deodorants and the shaving products they're using will go into their body and affect what is happening with their body. And so that was the first thing. I was like, this fits our mission very nicely.
Yeah, and then the second thing, or the other decision to make, was having decided that men's skincare was the way we wanted to go, was what our target audience was and how we wanted to be perceived. And at the time, it was dominated by two groups of men's skincare, which was essentially female skincare in grey or black or blue packaging. And really, the formulations hasn't changed. It was the Clarins, the Cliniques, the big players just getting into the market with their formulations, but not, in our opinion, putting a huge amount of thought into that side of it, or in particular the marketing. Or it was the sort of very masculine, I live in a cave, aren't I a man way of approaching it.
I need to climb a rock and growl like a bear.
Yeah, and I think maybe pigeonholing men in a certain way, which is in some ways the Yorkie bar.
Worsened by the whole beard, promenade, I'm a rugged, I live up a hill.
But also I think, in our opinion, downplaying not only the significance of skincare, but also the intelligence of those people buying it in a way, and maybe dumbing it down, and certainly is not the way we looked at it was the way to go. So we were then left with this feeling that actually what we should do with men's skincare is treat it as professionally and scientifically as the female skincare has been over the last 25 years, and give men a chance to get their hands on something number one for them, but also the best ingredient choices, the best regimes.
For those of you that have experience of the male skincare market, I think the explanations you've just used, like male scientific, you might possibly think of Lab Series, in honesty.
Yeah, they,
so that's probably, they are...
and Biotherm are the two that have probably stand out, done
they are
a good job.
the two leaders currently. But when we were looking at them, what they lack, in our opinion, is any sort of depth. There's a beautiful Paco Rabanne style model. They're screaming unintelligible scientific names at you and flashing blue in your face. I mean, the marketing is like flash, flash, blue, buy me, buy me, buy me. But where's the core? Why?
Yeah, what's the message beyond you can look like David Beckham?
Because as much as you just want to think moisturizer, it goes so many levels deeper. I'm not talking physically deeper into the skin, but it is so many. If you play the marketing game and you're like, well, why do you want to look younger? Like, why? If you keep asking why to that question, you always ultimately get back to the real core of, you need to feel your best. Like, you need to feel your best. People want to be loved.
Yeah, you want to feel competitive. You want to feel like you can go out there and win. And ultimately, you want to be happy with yourself.
And when we were back in our new marketing agency, we were explaining all of this. And I looked at the team that were there and I just said, I want people, and I know that there is a requirement for this in the male market. Like, I used to call Luke Tigger at university. He has an incredible skill and mentality that he is eyes open and he is glad to be alive. And he remembers that, and he's positive, almost painfully positive. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons.
Definitely think that.
Sure, that's one of the reasons I was attracted to him, because I was inherently cynical and happy to not wake up and be bouncy. And I said to them, it's as if he's just like literally fueled by life, like the pure joy of being alive, like that miracle of being a baby. And you have a baby, or your friends have a baby, and there's a miracle that they're alive. But at some point, as you go into adulthood, that disappears.
Well,
and I was like,
life gets in the way, whereas I see life as an opportunity to be excited. I think, unfortunately, some people get in a bit of a rut and life becomes a challenge as opposed to something to use as motivation to get up and get on with it. But we wanted to produce something that essentially helped people feel that way.
Yeah, and so this is the core. It is about Lifefuelled. It exists because we want to inspire men to feel better about their skin, but as part of that, their body and their mindset, and to draw the fact that there's this incredibly clear link between clean eating, health, sport, your life approach. Like, why is skincare different? It isn't. It is a part of it. You can build it to be a part of it, to add to all the bigger side, like how you perform at work, how you feel, how you interact with your family, like how you interact with your friends, how you wake up and look at the world.
Well, and ultimately the skin is the biggest organ in the body, so to ignore what you put on it and how you care for it is, I think something people are missing out on. And ultimately you get out what you put in all elements of your life. Skincare should be no different. If you're concerned about what you're eating, or who you're friends with, or what books you read, and you're doing that to be a better version of you, then we wanted to give people a skincare range which includes supplements. We haven't mentioned that at this point, but includes dietary supplements as well to enhance your skin and the way it looks and feel healthier, and therefore benefit from the knock-on effects of that.
And so this proverb man, this proverb men across the world globally, like getting into their head, we were like, right, truthfully, you don't have any time to waste. So you need something that is simple and concise to use. Okay, so we will do that. We have made a genuinely usable product range, which isn't massive. It's launches with 6 SKUs. And it is not going at you in a cave. It is filled with the elite version of every single grain ingredient. It is about thinking like you do, trying to make the elite best decisions that you can for your body.
And you want it to be efficient. I mean, we want everything to be frictionless. We want being involved with Proverb to be enjoyable, to be quick and easy, and for you to learn to trust us so that you don't have to waste a lot of time. We're going to have some great features on things outside skincare. We want people to get some advice on life balance, on how to get a winning mentality, on all the things that we want to inspire men and women to do. So it goes beyond just the actual product, but the delivery of the product. We've got a great amount of technology at the core, which is actually a good point to segue to our third founder, Ben. So obviously you've heard about Kirstie and I and how we met, and we did actually come across somebody at university who at the time we would never have guessed would be part of Proverb. We never even guessed Proverb would exist, because this guy is beyond tough mentally, and
he was a rower. He was one of those.
He was one of those people that really didn't party all year. Their year was epic. I mean, we're talking 4 training sessions a day, the longest race, competitive race in the world.
But really
the boat
similar
race.
to you, he was an undergrad who still
Yeah.
managed to get in the first...
Captain, he was president, they call it, of the boat race. But we didn't actually know him. I mean, we knew of him, and we'd been inspired by him and his team and stories of him. But
so he was in the blue boat, which raced against Cambridge 4 times, I think.
Yeah, and then went on to row for Great Britain in the World Championships and all of this, and run his own business. So there were great parallels, and we'd heard through friends of the similarities, but never
met him and his wife.
Never, until we get Kirstie and Luke.
And we'd heard rumours and seen some Facebook pictures of the summer that we had got married in Thailand. This other couple had got married in India, and they'd had an elephant. And so we kind of knew of it. And we were... It
sounded like our sort of people.
We were in Bali. We were at breakfast in our hotel, very tiny, small boutique hotel, like 15 rooms. We were about to go on a day of sourcing to go and look at kind of suppliers of the
pedicure bowls,
decor that we were using for spas. We don't source all of them from there, but it's always a good place to start looking at what exists, almost the customer-face version of the shopping. And Luke said to me, I am sure that guy over there is Ben Birch, the rower. And so we went off for our day and carried on.
Not being shy.
And then came back
that day.
Afternoon and sat by the pool because it was boiling. And
I decided I'd introduce myself. I mean, what's more normal than a 17 stone 6'4" hairy man coming and sitting on the end of your bed and introducing yourself, assuming that you would know them just from 10 years ago at university. Not quite
some mere glimpses at university.
Well, Ben tells the story much better than I do, but in a very short time, it was very apparent that Laura, Ben, Kirstie, and myself had a huge amount in common. They were running their own business. Ben is has a master's in electrical engineering from Oxford and was running an IT software development business. And over the next 5 or 6 years, I mean, this was when we were pregnant with Layla, so this is coming up to 8 years now, but obviously when Proverb was conceived, 4 or 5 years of becoming very close and very friendly. When we thought about Proverb, about the mindset, about the delivery, about the sort of elite thinking, the technology behind it, the integrity, being able to, it coming from people that you can trust. I mean, Ben has just run the Marathon des Sables, which is 160 miles in the desert in 6 days, ultimately for fun. I mean, he literally breezed through it. He's an inspiration. So when he was keen to be involved and underpin, Kirstie, you can think of as
I'm the
skin expert. I function in the body expert category, and Ben, has been an inspiration. Brings up.
We are trying hard to have his mindset, but we'd be truthful. He is the mindset leader.
Well, he is leading, but we're bringing him around to better skincare, and
and
we'll talk more about our body plans.
You'll hear us talk about skin, body, and mindset. That everything we do is trying to drive skin, body, and mindset, and ultimately, really, and this won't exist on pack, but in truth, that is the three. It's the 3 people: Kirstie's skin, Luke's body, Ben's mindset. And
underpinning it all, I say that for the 3rd time, but is honesty. That is Proverb, a short statement of advice or truth, and it is something we want to keep at our core, so that when we're disseminating information, inspiring people, that you can trust us. That if you're a guy out there or a girl that hasn't used this sort of skincare, or doesn't necessarily have the information, or know who to go to, we're there to help you learn and guide you through what is a bit of a minefield. There's some mistruths out there, and there's a lot of information. I think between the 3 of us, we can distill that down into a really concise and manageable, efficient way of learning.
And that, as Luke says, is why we chose the word proverb. When we were explaining this to the brand agency, they were like, all you 2 do is bang around talking about telling the truth about what's inside beauty bottles, why people really need skincare and don't really understand how it's a bigger picture and part of their life, and that nobody else is telling the truth. Everyone else is lying. That's what you've spent the last 10 years doing in a girl's world. We need truth, and for us, that is Proverb.
And it's about finding the truth. I mean, we're both driven by learning, all 3 of us, and part of it is about trying to find the truth, trying to find the best way to do something, trying to find what works, which is there's been a lot of learning on our path, but like I said, the plan is to distill that learning, and make sure that it comes out to our fans and our audience in a way that they find manageable and interesting and can go away and ultimately spread the word.
So we have spent 10 years in organic skincare, and it has done absolutely nothing but that convince both of us that it is the way forward. What it has done though, and because we're really truthful, is it has definitely revealed to me that there are still some frailties in the organic and natural market. And I basically think we should be truthful and front up to those. And so that is what Proverb is also set to do. And so one of the first challenges is that our current brand is a Soil Association organic certified brand. The certification routes for organic skincare are beyond complicated. And the end result
Confusing.
is that people believe anything with a green leaf on it that sits in Boots or John Lewis is completely natural, which is so far from the truth. But it's ultimately a joke. People just think if it's green, beige, flowery, white, got nice botanical words in it, tick, organic, full certified. And probably, to be fair, if you ask the girl that stands behind the counter, she'd tell you the truth as well. And it is like banging your head against a brick wall. I think we've done at least one podcast on this, organic certification. I'm sure it won't go away as a topic. And also, it varies in relevance. So we certainly did a lot of research into the men's market, and they are interested in natural and organic, but we didn't feel that they would be so, maybe even less clued up about certain certifications. So we basically have chosen to use...
Went off the reservation.
Yeah, I did go off the reservation.
Off the continent.
And have chosen a certification body, a US certification body called the EWG, the Environmental Working Group. Now, hands down, we could have not done this. We could have put whatever we liked in these bottles, and we could have branded it beautifully and sold it to the world screaming it was natural, even if it was only a quarter natural. It just is not in our capability to do that though.
No, nor was it enough really at this stage, to expect people to trust us. That's something we're going to earn, and something we're going to build up and have been with our Pinks Boutique fans over a number of years. But it probably, and we felt, wasn't enough to go to market with just that. And we wanted something, concrete, something. So
we went through an arduous process. Man alive.
I've actually blocked out my memory. I literally forgot we ever did it. It took 18 months, and it was long. The EWG we have chosen because of the transparency of how they label ingredients. So they have the biggest global cosmetic database of ingredients, and each ingredient is taken not only about organic and natural, but about health and about potential impact to the health and safety of your body. And then each ingredient is graded. 1 is green and good, and 10 is red, flashing, please don't put me on your body. And they also do an EWG verified system where the whole product gets tested. Yep. So if you go onto their website, it's the Skin Deep website, we'll put all of this in the show notes. You can have a look at an individual ingredient if you're looking at a product and you're not sure what it is, and check out their safety rating for it. Or there are now more and more products they've put on there, and if you meet the standard, you get to be EWG verified, and we are proud to say
we are. And in fact, we are globally the first male skincare brand that has the badge for every one of the skincare bottles. And within the UK, we're also the first complete range of products that has it on every bottle in the UK. And this will take some education here because it's a new badge to the UK really, but there's nothing like being the first. And the understanding of it is so easy because of like these green, amber and red. Like we're kind of all used to traffic lights.
And it fits in nicely with talking about clean eating, diet, ingredient choices, the impact they have. And so I think for someone to be able to think of it in those terms and look at either an ingredient list individually and pick out, as Kirstie said, what's good and what's not, and then actually the whole product and think, this has been tested for the reason of toxicity and safety, for the environment and the people using it, I think is fantastic.
Yeah. So it was an immense process. It was difficult. It is done. We have the badge, and you will see it on all of your packs. Now, the second thing that, if I am very truthful, I think the natural and organic skincare market is weak at, is the fact that although we all know that we're using beautiful ingredients, and we know that we're using literally the best soil grown version of each one, organic or natural brands tend to be younger. They tend to be newer to market. By default, you don't tend to have as much money compared to your Estee Lauders and your L'Oreals. And so truthfully, very few people are in a position or able to take their full own formula and put it through clinical trialing. And so the problem is, I am determined that there is going to be an organic natural brand that makes it to the mainstream. But that is going to be very, very, very difficult until ultimately we can start competing in the same arenas and using the same sort of language and testing claims. And so we have said there is no getting away from it. We have to put our money where our mouth is, which I can't begin to explain to you how much money it is to have independent labs testing bottles. You're talking 6, 8, 10, 15, 20,000 pound price tags for each individual parts that you need. Like, it is no small undertaking for young brands. But we are very committed that a core part of Proverb is lab proven, is lab proven testing. And so far, we have done full dermatological testing on all of the bottles.
And we've been lucky enough to put our moisturisers through a clinical moisturisation study, and in fact against some market leading brands. So we got a real benchmark of how well the products are performing, and are thrilled, without naming names, to let you know that they work. They work better.
And it was better.
Yes.
But we're very English, and even though we're allowed to legally, we're not going to tell you which bottles it were, but you'd know who they were.
Yeah, it's really exciting to know that our ingredient choices, are the best, and our results are also right up there. So that is something to look out for when we start talking about specific products. But I think that's enough for now for this podcast. Thank you for listening. There will be a part 2 to this, because we have a lot more to talk about in the world of Proverb. We've got to talk about our fantastic face of Proverb. We've got to talk about our fantastic program of using the products, our app for profiling you and giving you the best
what the
information.
products actually are.
The actual individual products. I mean, there's still a huge amount to talk about. But ultimately, thank you for listening. Thank you for learning about Proverb, about Kirstie and I, about our aims for inspiring men to healthier skin, body and mindset.
And we cannot wait for you to come with us on this journey and dedicate yourself, like us, to our proverb, which is, you get out what you put in.